Designing and making a game can be difficult. I don't think anyone can disagree on that. It takes a lot of hard work and effort in order to make a video game. So, where do you even start? Well, hopefully I can share some tips to help you get started. I know menus probably aren't the most interesting thing to listen to, but they are important to the game. A bad menu could ruin moment-to-moment gameplay, especially if you're going to that menu frequently. So it's important to get it right. And when I think of bad menus, there's one game I think of. Metroid Prime 2's menu is so bad. It's the Bubsy 3D of menus. You know, Bubsy 3D, one of the worst games of all time. That's the menu version of that. It's terrible. Look at it. It should be a crime. It's outlawed in 500 countries probably. Now let's start off with some things that I actually like about the menu. So, it works. When I hit the A button, it does what it's supposed to do. It looks kind of cool, and it does something new. It's in 3D. I've never seen a 3D menu. Unfortunately, this menu fails in every single other area, so it isn't very good. First of all, just look at it. Does it look visually appealing? No, it's boring. It's black and white and gray. I mean, they couldn't pick a more drab color scheme if they tried. Sure, it does fit with the game's tone. It's light versus dark. But still, that doesn't mean that you need to have just black and white. That's too basic. Another problem I have with it is that it just doesn't feel like it's from Metroid Prime 2. And I know a second ago I said that it has the color scheme in the game, but black and white, it's so generic, it could really fit with any game. In fact, this entire menu could be from any single other game. I mean, seriously. Nothing from this menu conveys to me that it's from Metroid Prime 2. Absolutely nothing. And that is a failure of a menu. But that's not even the worst part, because this menu is in 3D. And sure, it's kind of cool that it's in 3D. I've never seen another menu do this. But that's for a good reason, because having it in 3D creates so many problems for so little benefit. Sure, it looks cool, but it takes so much longer to navigate and it's way more confusing. It'd be way easier to have this in 2D. When you make it in 3D, people who don't play games often are probably going to get confused. They aren't going to know how to navigate the menu, and it just arises so many problems. All of these reasons and more are why this menu fails. It looks dry, it doesn't feel like it's even from the game that it's in, and it controls awkwardly. This is not what you want from a menu. Far from it. I go on, but I think you get the point. So let's move on to a menu that I think is very good. This is Persona 5, and as you can see, it's pretty dang stylish and visually appealing. So, the people who worked on the menu had a challenge. How are they going to take this and translate that into a menu? Well, this is what they came up with. Now, it might be pretty easy to see why I hate Metroid Prime 2's menu now, compared to this. I mean, this is absolutely amazing. This is considered to be one of the best menus ever created. I mean, look at it. The colors, visual design, the aesthetic. It's able to feel like it's from Persona 5 in no other game. So when I enter the menu, I still feel like I'm in that game's world. I'm still immersed in the game. And that's huge. That's what you want out of a menu. You don't want to feel like you're taken out of the game world. You want to still feel like you're in it. And this menu does a great job of doing that. On top of that, the menu is also organized well and controls really well. So it knocks all three of the criteria. It's amazing. This is the gold standard of menus. Now, I know not everyone may have the time or the budget in order to make something like this. And you don't have to. So take something like Pikmin 3. Sure, I don't think it's as visually appealing as Persona 5, but it's still a good menu. Really all you have to do is simple controls, easy organization, and good visuals. And look at Pikmin 3. It's 3 options, it's a background movement, simple, basic, yet effective. And if you can't have the budget for something like this, just use gameplay footage. The original Doom did that, a lot of other games do too. So it's totally fine to do that. Now, there's 2 aspects of menus, function and flashiness. And it's quite simple. You want both. If you had to pick one, pick function, because having the game function well is much better than having the game look good. But still, you want both. And that's how you make a good menu. Now, menus aren't really integral to the game. A bad menu isn't going to ruin an entire game. But level design, on the other hand, is extremely important. A bad level designer can ruin an entire game, so it's critical that you know how to make a good level. I think looking at an example of a level would be useful. So let's look at Jammin' Jams from Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. Now, this game is a platformer, and because of that, you aren't going to be able to translate every single thing directly to another genre. A level designed in Doom Eternal isn't going to be the exact same structure as something designed in Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, but most of the concepts I go over will be applicable. Let's just jump into it, shall we? The first thing that we need to go over is introducing new mechanics to the player. Luckily, that's actually pretty easy to do. All you have to do is put that new mechanic in a safe and controlled environment. Basically, just put it in an area where nothing can hurt the player. And just look at the screen. There's no enemies. It's just that mechanic and nothing else. And that accomplishes a lot of things. First off, I get to see what that mechanic does. There's nothing to distract me. It's that mechanic and I and nothing else. And second off, it gets me curious for what's to come. Because this should be basic, it makes me excited to see what's to come of the level. So I'm going to want to know how it's going to be used later down the line. And lastly, because I now have an understanding of what it does, if I die, it's my fault, because I already knew what the mechanic does. The last thing I want to mention is the spikes in the enemy. Because I now know what that mechanic does, the game's going to start ramping up in difficulty, and it's going to start adding new stuff. Now, this is 5 seconds after I learned it, so this part right here really isn't that hard, but later down the line, it's going to get harder because I already know what the mechanic does. Look at this right here, which I'm going to call a crusher for the rest of the video. I don't know what this does, but here's the great thing about this game. I can infer what it does. So, let's look at it. It has spikes on the bottom, and it's too high for me to reach. So, right there, I can infer that it's going to go slamming down. That's good level design. It's telling me something without a text box or without any other clues, mostly on its visual design and placement. good mechanics can be used in many different ways. Right here, instead of using it horizontally, they're using these platforms vertically, which is creative. It's a fun new idea. One of the most important parts of any game is its collectibles. They serve many different purposes, whether it's using them as a reward for a difficult challenge, or using them to guide the player on where to go. An example of the latter in this game is bananas. They are used to decorate the level and to guide the player throughout the main route of the level, or to hint them on where secrets may lie. Now, I know what you may be thinking. I didn't see any bananas in Uncharted 3, so how does it guide the player? Well, it's through lighting and colors that it's able to do that. See, our eyes are attracted to an emotion or anything that stands out. Because of that, game designers are able to have an interactable object be lightly colored or be moving in a way that's visually appealing to the eye. And even though there's no sign or anything from the game outright saying that this is able to be interacted with, you're instantly able to know, hey, I can use this, I can interact with it, and that's how something like Uncharted 3 does that. The last thing I want to mention with collectibles is health pickups, specifically the fact that you should never always lock it through a challenge. There should always be some health that's easily available to grab. Even in something like Doom Eternal, where defeating enemies gets you health, and that's the main goal, that's what the game designers want you to do, to grab health, there's still health pickups throughout the level because it'd be too punishing without it. This is a bonus room. There's really not much to say, so I'm just gonna skip this. I mentioned earlier that you want to use new mechanics in new and interesting ways, and this is a great example of that. It's taking a mechanic that you already know and just twisting it a little bit to make it more interesting, more challenging, and fresh. This section with the crushers and the last section with the disappearing platforms are very important to take note of, because these two sections are the climax of the level. It's important to have a final challenge at the end of the level, something to test the player on what they learned throughout that level. The last thing I want to note is letting the player cheat. And no, I don't mean infinite jumping or going through walls. No, you can't really do that in this game. I mean cheating through the level. And to show this, take this bird. Now, Sure, this bird's primary function is really just to be there as an obstacle. But if you're skilled enough, you can do this. Now, by no means is this required by the game. You don't have to be able to do this in order to finish the level, but it's something extra that you can do if you're skilled enough, and it feels really good to do. Having these in the level makes sure that veteran players and really skilled players aren't getting bored of the game. If you don't have them in a level, it's not gonna ruin it by any means. And that's it. That's how you make a level. Now, this didn't cover everything, but it was still a pretty good overview of how levels are made. But I want to play the level just one more time without any interruptions so you can get a really good idea of how all those aspects play into the level itself.
Wanna put you in